Hey y'all, welcome back. Today I'm putting together my July TBR, or at least I'm starting the process. I'm actually starting this a little bit early. You'll probably see Future Hope with the actual books, but I completely forgot that Tarot Readathon was happening in July, and I've participated one year before. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before that. It was one year that they took a year off from doing the Readathon. I think this is their third year, but the previous time that I participated, it was so much fun, and I'm really looking forward to it again this year. So the premise of this is that it's a competitive team-based readathon. You choose a team, with each team being based on one of these suits in a tarot deck, and then each team has like a specific ability that affects how you choose your prompts for your personal TBR. There's also like no doubling up because obviously there's a competitive element to it. And it was a lot of fun last time. I want to do it again this year, and I've chosen to be on Team Pinnacles this year. I think this might be the same team I was on the previous time, but this team, I really liked the team ability, which for this year is the ability to redraw each card once. So like as I'm making my TBR, if there was a card that I didn't have a book for, or I really didn't want to read the prompt for that one, I could just redraw it one time to get a different card. So the premise of this is that I'm going to be pulling cards from this tarot deck, and I'm going to start with 3 for the month. I feel like that's a comfortable place to start, and we'll see what the prompts are for each card, and I'll start picking books. I'm starting this early though so that I can give myself some time to actually decide what I want to read for each card, especially because also Summerween is happening in July. So I'm going to be participating in that as well, although that is a 1-week readathon, and I'm planning to prioritize mostly short horror for that. So I'm, hopefully I'll find some crossover between the two readathons, but I feel like if I start with 3 cards for a tarot readathon, that's like a reasonable number. I probably will finish those and be able to like pull more cards later in the month. So we're just gonna go ahead and draw 3 cards, and then I will check the prompts and see what they are, and then Future Hope will be back to tell you what books I've actually chosen for the prompts, because I'm gonna give myself a little bit of time to think about it and figure out how things are gonna all fit together for July. So first card is gonna be, I'm just gonna like shuffle. I shuffled them a little bit already, but we're just going to shuffle until it feels right, or until something falls out of the deck. This one wants to fall, so we're going to go with this. This is the Hanged Man. Very fun. I don't remember what that card means. I don't remember any of these cards mean, to be honest. I don't use this deck all that often. I should. I really like it. It's a nice deck. I like using like tarot cards and oracle decks as like a reflection tool. I should be using it more often. Anyway, shuffling again for card 2. Oh, this one's wanting to fall out. And the top one. Okay. Well, cards 2 and 3. What's card 2 going to be? This is the 9 of ink. I do have a little note somewhere that tells me like how this corresponds to the regular suits, so I'll check that in order to get the prompt. So 9 of ink. And then our last one is the 8 of light. So there we go. I'll be right back. I'm going to go look at those prompts because I don't remember what they are off the top of my head, but I will figure that out and be back momentarily. Okay, I'm back with those prompts, and we'll go through them in the order I pulled them. So the Hanged Man is to read a book with mixed media elements, which works really nicely for me. I actually already have a sense of what book I want to pull for this, but we'll get to that in a minute. Then we got the 9 of ink, and the prompt for this one is to read a book with a resilient character. Ink corresponds to wands in this particular deck. And then lastly, we got the 8 of light, and this is the 8 of cups for this deck. And this one corresponds to reading a book that is about moving on or embarking on a new adventure. So those are the 3 cards I have, and I'm actually going to redraw one of them. I am going to redraw the 8 of light because I already know I don't have something like that I know without reading it is about moving on or embarking on something new. So we're just going to draw a new one. I'm going to use that team ability to my advantage. So I'm just going to pull this top one here. This is the 10 of light. So let me go find out what that prompt is now. This works perfectly for me. The prompt for the 10 of light, so the 10 of cups, is to read a book in your favorite genre. Much better. I feel really good about these prompts. So mixed media elements, a book with a resilient character, and a book in my favorite genre. That's going to be really easy for me to fulfill, and I'm very excited about these. So you will be seeing me, future me, momentarily with the books that I'm actually going to be reading for these prompts. forget about the whole future hope thing because I took one look at my shelves and immediately spotted the books that I want to read for these prompts, and I could not be more excited. I think this is going to be a fantastic July TBR, and I already know what I'm kind of considering reading for Summerween, so we can just go ahead and talk about all of the books now because I'm really thrilled about all of these, and I'm really looking forward to July now as well. So for the Hanged Man prompt, which was the mixed media one, I'm going to be reading Murder in the Family by Cara Hunter, which is a mixed media murder mystery about this guy who, when he was a child, his stepfather was murdered in like the family garden and like the backyard basically, and nobody ever figured out what happened, but now many years later he is a documentary filmmaker and he gets involved in a project where they are bringing back all of the witnesses and all of the evidence from the original investigation, and they're re-interviewing people and trying to finally figure out what happened. So I think this is going to have like transcripts of interviews, there's like news articles, there's all kinds of different types of media in here, and I've heard really good things about this and it sounds super fun. I love a mixed media mystery, and this is the last one I have on my shelves that I haven't read yet, so this is a perfect opportunity for me to finally get to it. Then for the second prompt, which was Nine of Ink, read a book with a resilient character, I've chosen The Fractured Dark by Megan E. O'Keefe. Slight spoilers for my June wrap-up, which should be coming shortly after this TBR, but I read The Blighted Stars, the first book in the series, earlier in June, and I am completely obsessed with it. I loved it, and I went out and bought book 2 because I need to know what happens next. So I am going to be reading book 2 in July. I'm so excited about this. I think the first book is just absolutely fantastic, and I could not be more thrilled to be getting this on my TBR so easily and so quickly. So the reason that I've chosen this is that we have two main characters, Naira and Tarquin, and I would argue that they're both fairly resilient people for very different reasons, but canonically speaking, Naira's specifically resilient to cracking, which is a thing that happens in this world where people are able to back up their neural maps and be reprinted into a new body if they die. That's just one of the pieces of the technology in the world, and Naira is unusually resilient to having her neural map crack. So normally if you die a violent death, there's a high risk that your map will crack and you'll basically never be able to be reprinted. Your mind becomes like so warped by the trauma that you can't be reprinted because you just like wake up screaming. And so this is like one of the threats that faces everyone in this world, but Naira has died a lot of very violent deaths and she has never cracked, and this is like very unusual here, so she's like, canonically speaking, extremely resilient. She's also just kind of generally resilient given the other things that she's experienced and the fact that she just like keeps pushing for what she believes in. And then I think Tarquin is also fairly resilient because in book 1 he really has his whole world kind of yanked from beneath his feet, and the way that he just kind of rolls with that and is like, okay, I see the truth now and I'm gonna do what I can to fix it, I think makes him also a really resilient character, just in like a different way. But I am so excited to be reading book 2 of this series, and I'm probably gonna be reading this one first if I'm honest. For the last prompt we got, the 10 of Light, which was read a book in your favorite genre. I've chosen The Mystery at Dunvegan Castle. I think kind of volume-wise, fantasy is the genre I read the most. It's definitely amongst my favorites. I would say generally there's kind of a tie for me between like fantasy, horror, and sci-fi, but I do particularly love like low fantasy or urban fantasy, things that are kind of set in our world but with a magical twist or a supernatural twist, and I have been really enjoying this series, which is the Edinburgh Night series by T.L. Huchu. This is following Ropa, who is a ghost talker, as she gets involved in like various mysteries involving ghosts, and I just love this series so much. I think Ropa is a super fun protagonist. She's a little bit snarky and cynical, but like when it comes down to it, she very clearly cares about the people around her, but she's also very young, and so she makes a lot of like interesting mistakes, and I think that T.L. Huchu has done a really great job of writing like a kind of mid-teens teenager and the kind of recklessness that she has about her. I just really enjoy following her as a protagonist. The first 2 books are also fantastic. The mysteries are really well written, and I like the stakes that are there. I feel like it really feels like the stakes matter, which is really important to me, and I just have been thoroughly enjoying this one. So this one's following Ropa as she goes to this big conference, and they're in this castle and somebody steals a magical scroll, and it's kind of a locked room mystery about this theft, and she's got to basically work with the castle's ghost to try and figure out what's happened. Sounds super fun, and I'm excited to dive back into this world, this like version of Edinburgh. I think it's so fun and interesting. So that's where I'm going to be starting for Tarot Readathon, and I feel like that's a reasonable number of books. I could definitely read that in a month. And then near the end of July, or kind of mid to late July, Summerween is going to be happening. It's a week-long readathon, completely themed around horror, and I love this readathon. I participated the last couple of years. I think it's so much fun, and I've been really in a horror mood this year. I've been reading a lot of it. So I'm particularly excited to have like a whole week dedicated to reading horror in July. So there's 5 prompts this year, and I have picked out, I think, kind of the most likely books for me to read then. It's possible I'll change my mind, and I am planning to vlog for Summerween, but these are, I think, the ones that are most likely to get picked up for each of the prompts. So the first prompt is to read a book in the darker at night, so I've chosen a novella because I know I can read that pretty easily in like a single evening. And I've chosen Linghun by Zhang, which is about this weird place called Home, capital Home. And it's this like weird town where people go when they want to be haunted. It sounds like it's going to be dealing a lot with like grief and the difficulty of letting go, which sounds super interesting, and I really don't know what to expect here because I haven't seen anybody talk about this book, but it sounded super weird and interesting when I found it at my local bookstore, and I'm excited to give it a shot. Then the second prompt is to read a horror or thriller book, and I've chosen The Hole by Hai Young Pyun, which is a psychological thriller about this guy named Ogi who gets into a car crash that ultimately kills his wife, and he becomes a quadriplegic, and he is being looked after by his wife's mother, who seems to blame him for his wife's suffering, and she starts digging a hole in the yard just like over and over again. And so there's like this weird thing going on where he's trapped, he can't move or do anything on his own, and very weird and unsettling things are happening around him, and I think he's also going to have to grapple with like the way that he's treated his wife throughout his life. And it sounds like it's going to be also like very weird and interesting, and it's another one that I've not seen anybody else talk about, so I don't really know what to expect, but I'm excited to give it a try. And then we have read a book with 5 or more words in the title, and I've chosen, if I can get a hold of it, The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. I've actually started this book once previously and read about 100 pages of it, but I ended up slumping pretty bad around that time, and I wasn't totally invested in the book, so I ended up DNFing it temporarily, and I feel like it's time for me to finally come back to it. This is also on my like self-destructing books list for the year, so I'd like to go ahead and get to it. And I feel like I should read this one before I read the other Grady Hendrix books I have on my shelves, since I have previously DNF'd it. So this one is about a group of women who are all final girls. They've all survived some sort of mass killing or serial killing, and they are in this support group, and then it looks like they are maybe being targeted by a new serial killer. And one of the characters takes it upon herself to try and figure out what's going on. So I was enjoying it okay, I just wasn't like totally invested, and I'm hopeful that like giving this a second chance I'll like it better and be able to actually like finish the book. But I am curious about this premise. I had originally picked this up for a video project I was working on, and I ended up not finishing that project just again because of the slump that I was experiencing at the time. But it was all about like books about final girls. So I am curious to see how I feel about this now, like all those years after I originally started reading it. If you're barking in the background, that's my neighbor's dog Juice. He's very cute. He's very sweet. He's also very loud. We love him. The next prompt was to read a book with a night sky or any kind of sky on the cover, and I didn't have a whole lot of options for this, but the only one I could find that I think was the closest was Loot by Jennifer Thorne, which has these women like standing in water, and I'm interpreting this part as like a night sky. It almost makes me think of like an Aurora Borealis kind of a thing. But this is about a woman who has recently married into this ruling family that lives on a small island that I can't remember the name of. I guess it's Loot. Yeah, the island is itself called Loot. But every 7 years something happens called the Day, where 7 people are killed, and it seems to be some sort of sacrifice that accounts for the like good health and good fortune that all of the people on the island experience. And she, having married in, doesn't really believe in it, but then the day comes and she has to go through it with her new family, and it sounds like it's going to be a lot about like what you're willing to do to protect the people you love. So I'm very curious to see how I feel about this. This is yet another one that I haven't heard anyone talk about, and it just sounded super interesting to me. And I've seen it kind of compared to like Midsummer, which I haven't actually seen it, but I'm like familiar with the concept of the movie. So I think this could be really interesting, and it's a little bit different from the other things that I'm going to be reading. The last prompt is to read a book that is set during the summer or has summer vibes. And I've chosen Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones, which is set during the summer. It's at the end of the summer, and it's following a series of friends who start to play pranks on each other in the movie theater where one of them works, and it involves like a mannequin. It sounds like possibly the mannequin starts killing people, or maybe somebody just thinks that the mannequin is killing people. Something weird is going to happen, and it sounds like it's going to be like a good, fun slasher, and I really like Stephen Graham Jones' writing. I haven't heard the best reviews for this one in particular, but I think that his writing can be pretty divisive for people, so I fully anticipate that I will enjoy it because I've liked everything else I've read from him so far. And it's really silly to me that I haven't read this yet because it's incredibly small, and I've just been like, I think, putting it off because of those mixed reviews, but I really want to finally read it because it just sounds like it's going to be like a really good summery slasher book, and I'm really excited for it. So these are all of the books that I am currently planning to read in July for both TBR Readathon and Summerween, and I'm genuinely so excited about this stack. I think this is going to be a really fun July, and yeah, I feel good about my chances of getting through a good chunk of these at least, if not all of them. Especially for Summerween, since I've chosen so many shorter things down here, I think that I have a fairly good chance of reading most of them, but like these top three I feel pretty strongly about the likelihood that I will finish them. So I'm feeling really good about my July TBR going into the month. I'm very excited, I'm really looking forward to it, and it's kind of unfortunate for me that it's currently like mid-June, so I still have to wait a few weeks before I get to these. But at the same time, I'm excited that it gives me something to look forward to, and I'm just gonna be excited to start picking these up in July. So let me know down in the comments what you're planning to read for July, and I really hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you have, I hope you'll consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.